Listener discretion is advised. This podcast may include profanity and discussion of sensitive topics. Any opinions expressed are those of the speaker and do not reflect the opinions of any other person or entity. Welcome to episode 13 of the Real Future podcast. My name is Jon Nyboer. I'm a Los Angeles-based photographer of street dance culture, and I started this podcast to share the personal stories and perspectives behind the world's largest arts movement. My guest today is dancer and visual artist Jon Jimenez, aka Jon Gifted. As a dancer, Jon is a member of the pioneering Wave Gang, the Newz Fam Crump family, and the Rock Solid crew. He also works behind the scenes as a videographer and filmmaker. Gifted has a welcoming personality and a calm presence, and beneath all of that is someone intensely dedicated to his craft. When you see him move, as you will at the end of this episode, there is an intrinsic fluidity behind his expression. We talk about the origins of his organic approach to movement, his Latino cultural roots, and the growth of waving within dance. He also asked me some questions about the roots of my photography. So let's get into the real future with Jon Jimenez.
In that picture? I see. Dang, and yeah, we don't want that. Yeah. Wow.
So. All right. Well, welcome, Jon Jimenez, aka Gifted. Thank you for agreeing to do this and taking the time to come out here.
Yeah, absolutely.
I really appreciate it. I got you purple botones for no real reason other than they looked pretty good, and I don't know, purple seemed to work.
Purple's a really good color. Actually, yeah, I'm gonna have to take some of these home. I need some new flowers in my room.
They're for you, so
the whole bouquet.
Yeah. What do you think? I'm gonna give you one flower and take the no?
I mean, you were like, yeah,
you're my guest.
These are for the guests, and I see so many. I'm like, you give one per guest. I'm like, hey, yo, that's cool too. But the whole thing, right on.
Yeah,
sick.
Absolutely. So I usually just start by asking really simply, what's your first memory of dance connecting with you in a way that made you, be like, I gotta keep doing this?
I actually had this conversation recently, and I want to say the earliest time that I was connecting with dance was like the closing credits of the first Men in Black movie with Will Smith doing Just Walk With Me, Take a Walk With Me. And he was doing like the electric slide. And then there was also the first Footloose, the original Footloose with Kevin Bacon. At the very end of that movie, I think like the dance scene with all the kids at the school, there was a moment where this guy came out and he just started busting out like clean ass waves. And I was like, yo, I'm trying to be like that guy. I wanna really just step into that. And then also just especially like, so I guess you can take like the dance of what I experienced just from watching that closing credits for Men in Black, and then Footloose. It was like, okay, I want this conceptual nature, but also this groovy dancing nature to like really just be in my being, and I want to have it to freely move and express and just experience joy in that. And
you are the first guest to mention Footloose, which I love. This is totally. How did you end up seeing Footloose? I'm going to follow up on what you were saying, by the way, but I'm super curious. My wife is going to love this. Joni loves freaking Footloose. A lot of people in my generation love that movie. Yeah, but how did you get exposed to it?
So, I'm like, I don't know how deep I want to go with this question.
No, just real simple.
But yeah. Like my mom and my tia, like they grew up on, American culture, American pop culture, and one of the movies that they enjoyed was Footloose. Okay. And before we had cable, we just watched Footloose heavy.
Did you see Flashdance then too?
They wouldn't let me watch it. They were like, it's inappropriate.
Oh, have you ever seen it?
No.
I recommend going back and watch it.
I need to.
It's not. Yeah, I think you would enjoy it.
Yeah.
The worst part of that movie, she goes to an audition, and this is kind of near the end, right? She goes to her big audition, and I'm a record collector. I love records, and she goes into her purse and she pulls out a record for them to play for her audition, and the record's not in the sleeve or anything. I'm just like, oh my God, what are you doing?
Dang.
It was just wrong.
That's like forgetting your memory card at home when
Well,
you're
she
on
brought
set.
she brought the record. She didn't forget it, but it was kind of like putting the memory card in a bag with a magnet.
Oh, jeez.
But I think they just wanted it clean and efficient for the filming, you know. But I was
Yeah.
like, you can't do that.
No.
So those movies, though, were you dancing at the time, or was it like you saw the movies and they were like, okay, go?
Yeah, it's funny. Like, so the Men in Black one, I would always go to my friend's house, and for full context, he's black.
Mm-hmm.
And anytime I would go and like try to practice, they would cheer him on, like his family. They'd be like, "Yeah, baby, you're doing so good." And then for me, they were like, "Yeah, you need work, Jon. You need to figure something out." And I was like, "Dang!" And so like I had no dance experience. I had no like even idea that dance could be what it is now, and even what it is for me now. I was just like, I just want to experience joy here, and I love it here. I love what movement is doing to my being. So I just want to keep doing it. And so me and my friend would just watch Men in Black, and sometimes fast forward straight to the end so we could just vibe with Will Smith at the very end.
Oh my God!
But that was my introduction. So I was like maybe 9, 10.
And this was where?
Texas.
In
Dallas.
Dallas, Texas.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah,
did you grow up in the city or like outside of it?
I definitely grew up like in the. There was a little bit of time where I was in the city, and then the majority I was kind of like outer, like sometimes suburb. It was in and out. We were moving around a lot until I was like 12, 13. And then we parked it in like North Dallas.
Okay.
And then I finished out my school years there, and then I kind of stayed there for a while, and then at age 24 is actually when I moved to LA.
Moved to LA.
With Freedom.
Right. I know that you and Freedom moved out here together.
Yeah.
And do you still see that family that you were referencing that used to kind of tease you about your dancing?
No, I lost touch.
Did you ever have a moment where you walked in that living room and they were like, okay, you figured it out? Did that ever happen?
They were like, oh, all right, okay. Yeah, they were like, you're improving, but you still got some work to do. And I was like, all right.
Well, if they're still watching, or if they're watching, or you're,
they
should know.
Hey,
they should know.
Hey.
You figured it out.
Yeah. Y'all help me out. Y'all help me find my soul power. Thank you.
Did you? So it was just you and your friend, or was there a dance scene that you were aware of at that time in your area?
I didn't even become aware of the dance scene until I was 19.
19.
But I was dancing from that time up until I was connected to the dance scene in Dallas.
Was it all on your own, or were you taking classes here and there?
All on my own, because I didn't know that classes existed. I didn't know that there was such an avenue or an exposure like that, even in Dallas. Because when I started getting more in tune with the scene, people were like, "Yeah, we've been here since like 2005, yada yada yada," and I'm like, "Where was I? Like, I'm trying to do this."
But you were you like mostly just like doing this in your bedroom, or were you doing it at school or anything like that? Yeah,
so I was a big skater kid, like growing up, and I would, in between like me hanging out with my friends, even like when we would be at skate parks, I was always into music, right? So I always had headphones in, and I was always using that as fuel to push and fuel my anything creative. And at the time, it was skateboarding and nothing else. So in between waiting to do tricks, I would be like, and then I'd start dancing, and then my friends would be like, "What are you doing?" And I'm like, "I'm just dancing." And they're like, "Bro, stop." And I'm like, "No, I'm not about to stop. Like, I feel good."
So you didn't care?
No, I didn't.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and sometimes they would be like, "That's for girls." I'm like, "You sound dumb. You sound crazy."
So how come do you have any idea why you were that guy? Because a lot of guys would have bowed to that pressure or been like, it's great to hear. Like the whole, I was that kid too, not as a dancer, but if somebody told me like something was, girly or whatever, something like that, I'd just be like, thank you. Right? For whatever reason, I don't know. I really don't know. I always had that sort of confidence and kind of part of it was a pro-woman attitude too. I think maybe being raised by a single mom gave me some of that. But do you have any idea why you didn't why that didn't faze you? Because that's interesting. So many young boys are like...
I think mostly because I just really enjoyed it. So I was more so even just standing up for something that I felt really passionate about.
Yeah.
And when it came to... I also was big on art growing up. I loved drawing. Painting, I was really horrible at, but I still would, I would still try. But I was a big sketch artist. And then when it came to dance, it was kind of like, once I found that it connected to me more, I was like, I know, I'm gonna do this. I don't care. And I'll like just be on my board even. I'll just like throw a wave. And I'll just be like, yes, this feels nice. This feels good. And they're like, stop dancing. And I'm like, shut up.
Oh my God, I can just see you guys at the skate park. That's hilarious.
But they would clown. But at the end of the day, like I actually still have connections with a handful of my skater friends, and they're like, bro, you really took off with this. And I was like, yeah, I did. And I didn't think I was going to, but I'm glad that I did, and I'm glad that I followed. I'm glad that I followed my heart, my intuition, the how do you say, just the curiosity, because now, Well,
who were the role models at that time before you got into the scene? Were you just going home and like watching Missy Elliott videos, or like what were you...
I mean, of course, you know what I mean. Missy Elliott was definitely one of the ones that influenced a lot. It was like Missy Elliott, Usher, Chris Brown. I was never into Michael Jackson growing up, and anytime I tell that to somebody, they always get a little like, not butthurt, but they're like, but everybody loves it, especially if you're a dancer. Like, you don't like Michael? And I'm like, there was just something that didn't connect to me at the time. But granted, like I understand his artistry and just how great he is, but growing up, like all of that, I just didn't gravitate towards. I gravitated towards a lot of illusionary and very strong, powerful, of course, like breaking, like popping animation, crump, like all of those. Like, and even when I saw Rise, I was like, that's okay, that's next. And I got to figure that out. But in terms of like influence, it was that. And then of course I saw Wiggles on a lot of these music videos, but I didn't know Wiggles was Wiggles, like that's how innocent and also ignorant I was to everything. I was just like, yo, this is dope. Was it like internet, or were you watching like TV shows, or what? It was more TV until YouTube became a thing, like it was definitely
like 106
MTV,
in Park, watching that.
MTV, what is it called? Now I can't even think. Total Request Live, TRL. I was heavy on that.
Were you in that? There was a local one apparently, meaning Dallas local, that Freedom told me about.
MTV3?
Not an MTV show, but one that he was actually on.
Oh,
I guess it was kind of modeled after 106 in Park, but it was local.
This is so cool because it's called Dance Club 21.
That's it. That's the one.
Yeah, yes. And actually I watched that show every day, and then after that Cheaters came on, and it was like a family event. I would watch that show, and then everybody would come so we could watch Cheaters after this dance show. And it was such a weird like placement for a dance show, and then this crazy like dramatic TV show. But yeah, I watched not 106 in Park. I watched Dance Club 21.
Dance Club 21, yeah.
And before I knew Comfort, I saw Comfort on there. I saw her brother on there. I saw who a lot of people know now as Hampton Exorcist Williams, who I grew up around. Valkyrie. Basically, a lot of the
nickname's Exorcist.
Yes, yes. We could get into that later. He, I don't know if you know about him, but
I do not. There's other people you mentioned somewhat familiar with, but no.
Yeah, he's a phenomenal artist, and he's definitely somebody that inspired a lot of my movement, but also just my journey, perspective.
Let's get into that. So you said like around 19 is when you connected with the actual dance scene, and the street dance scene, right? Did you ever do the studio thing, or more like...
No.
So you're always street styles, right?
Yeah.
So how did you connect with that, and who was the mentors?
So
it's
funny.
Who gave you the name too?
The first person that I connected with in the scene was Hampton, because this is also kind of cool how it happened. When I was going to high school in Richardson, I went to high school at Berkner. Valkyrie went there, and Exorcist was always there battling just all the folks that dance, and that were very like vocal about their dance. They're like, man, I'm so cold, and like D-Town Boogie was really, really, really taking off at that time. So
this is like early 2000s.
Yeah, I want to say like 2005, 6 to 2009. And at the time, Hampton was called SpongeBob, and so he would come and just battle everybody and like kill them off. He was like the craziest. I don't want to say waiver, you could associate with, but at the same time, like he was just a very naturally expressive being. So anything he did just had so much more weight because you felt it through his energy. And I can't remember where we met, but he saw me step out somewhere, and he was like, "Bro, where you from?" I'm like, "I'm from here." He was like, "How come I never seen you around?" It's because I just found out about this. I've been I've just been doing this shit in my room for so long, and I wish I could find the video. Like, I have a video of me at 17 dancing to maybe, I think it was Drake or something, or like one of these old tracks. And it was just all waving. It was even before I knew how to pop. And that was kind of like the way that I did my dance at the time. And then, I met Hamp, and he was like, "Yo, come to this session in downtown by the Iron Cactus." And the Iron Cactus was just this really nice restaurant that was in downtown Dallas. And there was like this big courtyard that they would always session at, whether it be on the weekends or even like on some weekdays, and they'd be there till like 2 a.m. And he was just like, "Come through and just vibe and get to know the community." And that's where I met a lot of the core Dallas community heads, like even the ones that are now like community leaders in Dallas.
And then did you start to, because you were so, like self-directed, did you start focusing on a particular style at that point, or?
At that point in time, I wasn't really like style focused. I was just more like following the notion of freedom, of free expression, and I think that's just been something that I've always gravitated towards, is just being as free as possible and having no bounds. And if there was anything that felt like a wall, I would try to figure out how to break it or break through it or even utilize it as a tool. But I think the thing that I was really heavy on was waving, tutting, and breaking at that time. And then 2 years later, Crump came after that, and I think that was the strongest discipline that I had around that time as well. And Freedom was also the person who taught me Crump. Like, Yeah, he introduced it to me, and he broke it down for me in my apartment in Dallas. And for a while, people thought like I was Jay Free or Lil Free, because his teachings were so ingrained into me that now I was like emulating even his mannerisms with the dance. But
did you two meet at school, or?
We met at that session.
At that session, the Iron Cactus session.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because it was like there was poppers, there was maybe like a couple breakers, and then there was Antics, Freedom, Illa Red, and Trent Seiler. Those were the 4 crumpers that I met in that time, who I still know now, and got introduced to just basically the entire scene of Dallas. In that moment, I was so overwhelmed, but at the same time, I was like, "Yo, I'm trying to just dive deeper here."
And who gave you the name? The Gifted?
Yeah, I give myself the name.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
you're going Kobe style.
I was trying to. I was trying to figure out, because this was helping me also find my kind of my purpose, my why, my intention, even with my dance. And so I was doing like some soul searching, and I was like, what do my names mean? Okay, I'm like, Jonathan, God's gift, okay. And I'm like, what about my middle name, which is Matthew? And I'm like, gift of God. And I'm like, all right. Blessed? Nah. Bless? Nah. Gift. And I was like, maybe in Spanish. Regalo? Dotado? No. I don't know. And then I just came with Gifted, and I was like, okay, let's try it. So I went to a battle one day. I remember it was 2018, and Hampton was there, Valkyrie was there, Freedom was there, all the cats that I was introduced to the first time I came into the scene. I was now reintroducing myself as Gifted with these same group of people, and they were like, "Yo, whose name is that? That's a tight name." And then I walk out, and they're like, "Oh shit, it's Jon!" And I was like, "Yeah, that's me. And then from then on, people just kept calling me Gifted, and now people think that's my actual last name. And being that I also look very indigenous, it sort of tracks. Like, they're like, oh, okay. And I'm like, yeah, okay.
Yeah. Is your family from Mexico? Or?
Yeah. So my family, I'm trying to remember. It's very huge family, Mexicans. But so like it goes from Juarez to Chihuahua to Casas Grandes and to I want to say Durango, but
So
like
northern.
yeah, like some very close to the border because I was born in El Paso, and that's where they ended up like really like settling down was El Paso.
Yeah. Like speaking Spanish in the home growing up?
Not with my mom,
Not with
but
your mom.
like my grandmother for sure. So
Yeah.
that's why like my Spanish is like kind of iffy because my mom was really not trying to have me have this this crutch or this disadvantage being in school, and it actually would have been a great advantage. For
Yeah,
me.
it's interesting how that plays out through generations.
Right.
Yeah, that's like very common. I mean, it goes back to my dad. My dad came from a Dutch family.
Yeah.
And like his dad spoke broken English, but like none of the kids spoke. He one of 12 kids. None of them spoke Dutch, right?
Dang.
Oh, except the oldest sister who was born there.
Yeah.
Right. And then that carries on, and it's interesting that your mom had that because she's like a little younger. Like a lot of generations like her age are more like, no, you should be bilingual, right? It seems like Americans in general are catching on to this idea, like, oh, it's a good thing.
Yeah.
But you speak some Spanish.
Yeah, I understand more than I can speak. I think as of lately, when I'm around nothing but Spanish speakers, it doesn't matter, what accent, it comes back slowly but surely. Then when I'm like, just around all the folks, all the homies, and somebody's like trying to holler at me in Spanish, sometimes I'm like, wait, I gotta find it. It's like I gotta go through a filing cabinet to remind myself that I know this word or that word. It's right. It's a long process, but I'm just still currently like in the practice of it, and I'm also just trying to remind like my friends like, hey, I know like I'm not that great, but can you still speak to me in Spanish? And they'll be like, yeah. So like I'll get around like Zuse or Lily Frias or like any of the other Mexican homies, and I'll just be like, dime en español, por favor. And they'll be like, ándale pues. And they'll just start going. And I'm like, yo, slow down, because I don't know what you're saying right now. Growing up, just trying to figure out what I wanted to do, I would always look for role models that were specifically Mexican, just to gauge, like, can I do this? Can I be in an artistic field as a Latino? Because all I was familiar with was a lot of white people growing up, just like seeing like these are who are really like.
So who did you latch on to?
For skating was like Paul Rodriguez.
Okay.
And then for dance, the first one was Boogie Frantic. Yeah, Boogie was the first Latino that I was like, yo, hey, and like just him being a Chicano, and I grew up, with like, granted, I don't have the Chicano like nature in me, but also it's like just kind of there.
Okay.
But I have like cousins and, of course, family that were in that culture. And so I was also just drawn to it out of, just growing up in it. And then seeing Frantic, I'm like, yo, he looks like family. And then he looks like he could be my uncle. But now he's also like somebody who's doing really great things on really big stages, on really big films, you know? And I'm like, dang, so there are Latinos in this art world, like and that's just only to name like one.
Well, shout out to Frantic. I'm actually trying to schedule him for this.
Yeah. No, and I've told him this too. Like I had one day I was like, bro, I got to geek out with you real quick and I just let you know that you inspire me so much. And then he was like, oh man, thanks.
You met him here, right?
Actually, dang, I think I met him in Dallas, like in passing.
Real?
Yeah.
Like he came out?
Yeah, somebody flew him out. Maybe it wasn't Dallas. It was Texas for sure. And then I actually had like a few moments where we were like in the same place when they had the dojo. Like it was him, Devious, basically the Great One-Eighters, all in that house. I went with Hampton and Valkyrie, and that's when Valkyrie and Frantic went like 12 rounds, just back to back. They were just going at it, and I was just like, "Whoa, this shit's tight. This is crazy." I was just taking it all in, and that was also my first time. No, that was my second time coming to LA because I did a Spanish television show my first time coming to LA, and then I did Spring Break, and that's when I saw Frantic.
What do you mean you did a Spanish television show?
Do you know about Tengo Talento, Mucho Talento?
No.
Okay. So basically, it is the Spanish version of America's Got Talent. And I was in a dance crew from age 19 to like, I think, age 20, 21.
What was the crew?
They were called Famous Latin Stars. Shout
Okay,
out
cool.
FLS. FLS for life.
Yeah, I like to get those names in there.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, so many names. So many names.
Well, just the name of the crew. We don't need to like go.
All the folks, but I'm
Yeah,
also
whatever
still
you wanna
connected to
do.
them. Yeah, no, I'm still connected to them too. Like a lot of them still dance, a lot of them still pursue art amongst being adults in their adult life too. But
So you got cast on some show just randomly, or were you?
I don't even know how we found out, but like the person, Kristen Exton, she was like, "Hey, there's an audition for this Spanish television show. I think we should do it." And so we did it. And at that time, this was also my introduction into choreography. So I was new.
And you just went open audition.
Yeah.
You guys went in. Okay, let's just go. Do
Yeah,
this.
and we just went with like this MJ set. And
How big was your crew? How many people were we talking?
and this one, I think it was 7 people.
Okay.
For this show. Eventually, it went to like 10 to 15, and then they started doing World of
So
Dance.
you go audition, and and then did they fly all you out here?
Yeah,
You must
yeah.
have been so.
I was geeked.
Because you're like 19, 20?
Yeah, I was young. I mean, I was like, this is a lifestyle for people, and I'm about to be a part of this or get a taste. And I remember there's a photo somewhere, but like the Burbank Town Center where I think now is like the Blaze Pizza, the GameStop,
Okay.
and all of that. I have a photo where I don't even think they have the structure. There was like the slab, the big concrete slab that was, it had like this cool little pattern.
Sure. Yeah.
But I went and I did a freeze on it out of the fact that I was in LA for a TV show.
Oh my God.
And it was crazy. And I was like, yo, this is tight. But then we got on the show, we made it to semifinals, and then we got cut. But it's funny because going back to me not knowing Spanish, they were actually like telling us all the stuff we needed to fix. And me and my other friend were just like, because we just didn't understand. And Exton was like, whatever happens, just smile. And we're like, okay. So we're sitting there, and they're like, yeah, you got to be cleaner. You got to be more powerful. You could be stronger here. And we're like, yeah,
But you
yeah.
made it to the semifinals.
Yeah, no, yeah. And it was cool. But like, they make an album for the show, so we already knew that we weren't going to get that far.
So then were you thinking of moving out here before that, or was this so once you did that, were you like, I got to move to LA? How did that all play out?
Well, it played out simply because fast forward, Freedom would do a lot of shows at his college, and that's how him and I got close too. And then he was like, yo, when I graduate, I think I'm going to move to LA. And at that time, I was also ready to just move. Like, it didn't even have to be necessarily like LA. I was just like, I need change. And when he said that, I was like, I think I'm going to go with you. And I put together a workshop, and a lot of people came out and supported. It was me and a couple friends.
As like a fundraiser.
Yeah, to fundraise for our move. And, it went well. And then we packed our bags January 14th, I want to say. Actually, no. I think it was January 28th.
Oh,
we
wow.
drove from Texas to LA, stopped in Vegas, say hi to my family, and then I think we came into LA February 1st or 2nd. So now we've been here 10 years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And when you came out, were you thinking like that you wanted to get in the entertainment industry and do auditions and all that? What was your kind of
my
vision for that?
My initial motive was just to experience, and like I wanted to definitely tap into the industry and see how I could basically just do what I love in front of these, different lenses.
Yeah.
Like I was always dreaming of doing commercials. and of course like movies. And I did love performing live. Like, we know it as theater now, but at the time I was just like, yeah, live performance. Like, I would love doing that. But not necessarily doing backup dancing, but more so just being highlighted for movement is what I was really drawn towards.
Did you, because I don't really know this part of your career. Did you do some of that stuff? Did you do, like, get a SAG card and do some of the movies and TV and all that?
No. When I tell you I knew nothing, I knew nothing. I was just like, I'm coming out here on faith just to see, you know, what God has in store for me, what is here for me, if there is anything. And I also was already filming at the time as well, so I used that to kind of help me sustain, just doing different video jobs, sometimes photo jobs. Excuse me.
No problem.
And that was just me seeing what was available, because I just heard things like, yeah, this, you could do backup dancing here, you could teach out here, you can, you know, do all these performing opportunities. And I was like, I don't really know exactly what, I just want to experience it and see if I connect with any of it.
Yeah.
And so that's what I did. And we got into quite a handful of things. I know, like, our first job was Coco Jones, Freedom and I. And then we did Will Smith together.
As dancers?
Yeah.
Okay.
Will Smith did a song with Bomba Estéreo, and we did that music video. And then that's where we both got signed. It was called Fiesta.
Okay.
And we filmed it in downtown LA in this really big warehouse. I don't know if a lot of people have shot there, but I can't remember the location. But it was really dope, and they also had this really crazy setup. That's where I also was geeking. I was like, dang, I'm trying to do this too. I'm like, how do I tap in with these folks? But yeah, that was like the first of many things that we did. And then after that, it just became one after another, like, hey, you trying to do this, you're trying to do this, you're trying to do Carnival. And also that too, I would see Carnival a lot back in Texas, because we also had this thing called Move to Groove Ball, which was like a spinoff of Carnival, because the organizer of that event knew Carrie and did a lot of stuff with Carrie, and they were like, we want to do this in Texas, but we don't want to take away or try to, you know, take from what you've established here in LA. What would your, you know, advice be? And then Carrie was just like, just, you know, put a different name on it, and then just, yeah, do the format. Let people come showcase and, you know, show their work. And that's what we did. Like, and especially growing up as freestylers, we were like, you know, let's see if we can just create a performance off of synergy, off of feeling each other, and also seeing how we can evolve a story through planting one seed, whether it's a gesture, a prop, or something. It was just something that we got into the habit of doing, and then we just started doing that out here. And of course, it works great in battles, of course. But like, and as a,
when you say we, you're referring to
me, Freedom, Valkyrie, Hampton. Like, basically, the group that I grew up around was Hampton, Valkyrie, Narcy, Sparks, Freedom, MJG.
But just the two of you came out here, right?
Freedom. I mean, we all were out here.
You were? Okay.
At one point, like 2015 to 2017, 18, everybody was out here.
And so those first years you were doing all these things, were you actually making a living as a dancer, or were you mixing it up and just kind of doing some filming work? And
it was a little bit of both.
Little bit of both.
It was definitely like we were scraping for sure, because you know, we were trying to figure it out. I was really adamant on just not having a 9-to-5, because I came from working. I worked in elementary schools a lot. I worked in education, but I wasn't necessarily an educator. I did like a lot of after-school programs, and then the last job that I had, I was what they called a logistics specialist for the child nutrition department, which was something that was way far from anything that I was experienced in. And they made up the position just so they could have somebody do whatever I was doing.
Yeah.
And I was like, I hate this. I'm like, I'm leaving in 2 years. And sure enough, I did. And that's when we moved to LA. And so that's where I was like, yeah, I'm not doing any job like this ever again. So I devoted my time to really getting better in my dance and also in my film so I can make money and also just have this creative lifestyle that I enjoy.
Yeah.
You know, and that's what I did for the first few years, was just like build those connections and let people know that I'm out here just trying to make something really dope, really, really great. And I'm wanting to tell stories. We're wanting to tell stories. And now to this day, Freedom and I are telling stories in our own way. And when we get to come together, we'll also tell our story as well of how we grew up, because we still have a lot to say when it comes to that regard. And our upbringing in Texas really had a lot to do with who we are today.
Are you saying that you have a slowly developing vision of actually a project about your childhood? Or are you saying that you do this? Yeah, that's what you're saying. Okay,
basically, yeah. It's
that would be
so
be
it's
interesting.
it's like,
because I didn't really, I see Freedom's productions all the time, right?
Yeah,
like we all do, and I didn't really know that you had this side to yourself. Do you do choreography, and have you produced stage pieces and things like that?
Yes and yes. So
okay.
Actually, in Dallas, I also did a lot of work with the church that I went to, and I did a lot of stage stuff with them there, and that's actually what was my introduction to learn how to stage and then what was necessary and what wasn't, and just all about production.
Right.
Just to get me like acclimated. And then that's when we started doing Move to Groove. And then when I was in these dance crews back in Texas, we would practice in that way. And then of course, like even now, as of lately, I think the last stage performance that I did, or even choreographed, was Wave to the Stage in Berlin. Shout out to Wave to the Stage. They're actually about to do another rendition of that this week coming up, and they have Callie and Enox as the choreographers.
Are they based in Berlin?
Yeah. So I don't know if you're familiar with Kittredge Crew. They came out for Waves Within the past couple years, and one of the people in that crew, her name is Pez, and she's the one that is the organizer and also one of the other choreographers that's a part of this theater show. And she actually created it as well, because there aren't any theater shows that are centered around waving. And
all right, well, let me dial that back a little bit, because I think, for those who don't, like waving is your kind of primary dance expression, as far as I know. Is that the case these days?
It's my primary, only because it's also my tool for grounding. So I come to it a lot. It's just in life.
Do you see it as a style of its in and to itself, or do you see it as something that's integrated into other styles, or is that not even the right question?
Both.
Okay.
Both, because they're both true. Like it can exist on its own, and for me, it's existed on its own. But then also, for me as well, as it has existed between all the other disciplinaries that I have and that I love.
Because as like an audience member, I saw waving as a component, right? And it really wasn't until probably I became aware of. Now you formed the Waves Within. Do you consider that a collective, or what's the proper
Wave Gang
noun for that?
Wave Gang is a crew and a collective.
Crew and a collective,
sure.
and that's like internationally based, right?
Yeah, because we have international folks that are in it.
So it wasn't really until my exposure to that, to your first Waves Within that you did in LA, that I saw it as sort of a potentially a standalone style, right?
Yeah.
Rather than a component.
Yeah.
So I would love to talk about that and learn about how you got so into this, not only as an individual, but that it connected enough people like around the globe. And how many people comprise Wave Gang, more or less? Like 10, 20, 30?
Like 8.
8, okay.
I want to say.
And then the group you just mentioned in Berlin,
so Kittredge is like, I want to say, they're like Europe, not even just like.
And did
Germany.
they exist separately from y'all, and you met?
Yeah. When we had the first edition of Wave, so many Wave names. of Waves Within. That's when I met them for the first time. And then from there, we kept in touch, and then they came last year, and then it was more so Pez. We talked about just doing some sort of project because she does a lot of theater stuff out there, and she was like, hey, would you be interested at all? I'm like, yeah, I've done it before, and I've enjoyed it, I've loved it, and if there is an opportunity there, I would love to be a part. And then last fall, it just so happened that I was going to just go out to Europe to try out this tour that was presented to me, this teaching tour. And when I told her about it, she was like, oh, we got to get you to Wave to the Stage then. And I was like, oh, okay, cool. And that's when I did that, and it was a really dope experience.
So this was a single piece in a theater?
Yeah.
Like an hour long? Like, what are we talking here?
So the way it went was we had 6 days. 6 days? No, 5 days. More or less 5 or 6. 6 hours a day to build a 20-minute piece.
Okay.
Yeah. And it was with people that, you know, we knew or didn't know. But for me, I knew no one. Maybe one person that was in my group. But and then at the end of it, it became an hour-long show because there was 3 choreographers, 3 pieces. So, you know, 20 times 3 is 60.
And what was the audience coming to see as far as they
They were coming to see a show that was centered around waving, and each choreographer had a different intention.
Was it the government funded or
no?
Totally self-funded.
Totally self-funded, and of course the people that, because it was also a paid experience, so the people that paid to be a part also helped fund the entire thing, like from the space to the theater and to all the other people involved.
Right.
That's how it logistically played out. So yeah, it was basically all in-house, and it's still like growing. But the first year the first edition was really cool, and so now they're on the second one, and yeah, there are talks for it to be really well.
Well, the reason I'm asking all this is not that I'm so interested in like theater sizes and logistics. I just think, like, I'm really curious as to how the waving. How did you find that there was? Cause, you know, you're coming up learning all these different styles, right?
Yeah.
Popping, breaking, crump, hugely influential. You come out here, you know, like you said, you've been doing some form of waving ever since you started moving. But how did it come to be that this type of movement was so definitive for you and others that you end up coalescing around it, and not only forming your own crew, but staging Waves Within here in Los Angeles is what, a 5-day event now? Is that, or do you do a full week?
This last one was pretty much like 5 days.
So it's workshops, it's sessions, and then there's a battle at the end, and now like you're revealing an international component to this where you're like traveling abroad, and yet I think even more than a lot of the more prominent, like, you know, street dance to some level exists on an underground level anyway. But this is really, again, I think it's even more obscure, right? The movement itself is not.
Yeah.
Right. But the fact that it's brings people together like this. So how did you come to this place where this style of movement brought you together with people and motivated you to form a group and connected you with, you know, because it's so much more, it's not like crump where you have very definitive style and hierarchy. It's not like breaking where it's clearly a style and there's music designed for it. Like, this is something that started out as a component and grew into a style. And you see what I'm getting at? I'm really interested
absolutely.
In this. Like, what can you say about this?
So teach
me about it.
Let me, I guess, introduce it how I guess you could say, how I found a deeper connection with it. In 2018, just to make this long story short, I was going through some family things, and it was getting really heavy, and I was like, I need an outlet. And one day I ended up passing out, hitting my head, and when I came to, like, it was like some shift happened in me, and then I started developing anxiety, and then I was trying to navigate that, and that's when I was like, okay, waving is the tool that I'm going to use to help me connect to my body, connect to myself, connect to my center so I can find my grounding and just, be at peace, be at ease.
And so were you like, I'm going to do this a half hour a day? Like, what was your...
Man, I was cooking outside in the backyard for like 5 to 6 hours every day.
Damn. This is before you moved out here?
No, this was when I was living in LA.
You're living in LA, okay.
Yeah, 2018 forward, I was just outside because when I wasn't working, when I wasn't busy doing, life things, I was in the backyard. Like Freedom saw me, my brother Tony saw me, and that was just how I knew how to regulate myself at the time. And so waving came as that tool. That
sounds like a meditation practice for you.
Yeah, and that's absolutely what it was then and what it still is for me now.
Okay. How did you start connecting with people and be like, we want to build a whole thing around this?
So I did, fast forward to 2020, we did...
you mentioned the battle. Like
the battle.
Kind of distracted you, sorry about that.
No, it's cool. I did the one that Jay Smooth put on, which is the first Waves Within that was online, and ended up winning. Yeah, it was
pandemic, right?
Yeah, and ended up winning that one. And that's when he asked me, hey, would you be down to, rock with Wave Gang? Because we're trying to really build the waving community. And what we're focused on is just, uplifting anybody who is interested in waving and who wants to dive deeper.
And who was it at that time? Like
in the
Jay,
crew?
Well, before they bring you in, it's Jay and
it
who?
was, Jay, Enox, Bishop, Christo, Jesse Sykes. I don't know if he was in it.
He must have been.
Before I was in it, or if we were in it at the same time.
I got so many pictures of that guy waving.
Yeah. Hardcore. Yeah. Frantic.
Yeah.
Poppin' Todd was already in it. And I'm trying to think before whoever.
So you all connected online to some extent.
Yeah.
Because all these people are not all in LA. Like some of them are, but they're not. So do you feel like this is like one good thing to come out of the pandemic? Like,
oh, for sure.
It sounds like you're all watching each other online and kind of this is coalescing.
Yeah, and it's funny because that was the normal thing at the time. Is like, now everybody is somewhat forced to engage online because of the pandemic, and that's where I think a lot of inhibitors were lifted because people have stigmas with social media, yada yada yada. But at this point, it was like I just want to connect, and that's how we got close. And then of course we all met at the first Waves Within, and that's how we got to get more established also as Wave Gang.
For anybody who's wondering, like, because I think, especially a lot of people my age think of the wave as just your basic, and sorry about that, I'm just trying to do it, right?
It's all good.
But could you you don't have to get up or anything, could you kind of give a sense of like the basic waves? You have the one that people have been familiar with since the 80s, and then you've got kind of the hip hop full body wave, right? And does everything build off of that?
Yeah, so there was the arm wave and the tidal wave, which is the full body.
Tidal wave is the full body, starting with the head, right?
Yeah.
Rock shoulder all the way down.
Yeah, and then you had people like Taco, who came and really revolutionized.
Shout out to Poppin' Taco.
Yeah, the Cobra.
Rest in power.
And snaking, and even all those cats out in Long Beach. Like, so granted, the history with waving and even like its association in the West Coast was like heavily in like Long Beach and the IE and Compton. Like a lot of those cats really were pushing the style back in like the 70s and the 80s. And now that we are where we are, you got people like Jay Smooth, who's also trying to help bring them to the forefront to let people know that this style has always existed and this is how it has existed. That way we can know, like, okay, we have this knowledge and now we can see how we can push it forward.
Are you still like self-directed? Like, or do you take classes from other people? Do you have mentors? Are you still just kind of...
Yeah, I try to, with the way that my schedule has been working lately, it's been really tough, but I do try to still intake, and a lot of times it just comes down to the session, who I'm sessioning with, and that's how I've grown to learn, was through my peers, and that was something that always worked for me. So that's why, like, being around people like Freedom, Hampton, Valkyrie, Narcy, all those folks in Dallas had a lot of impact on my growth because their knowledge came from their mentors out here, and one of them being Boogie Frantic and the other being Wavo. So even like I have little like remnants of lineage from those sources through them and because of their experience. And so if anything, I could definitely say, you know, like I've learned from Frantic. I have learned from Frantic.
Right.
You know,
I hear
like,
what you're saying.
You know?
Yeah, but more in a like relationship kind of organic. You just seem to have this really organic process, right? You know, I'm always interested in this because everybody's got their different.
Yeah.
You know, some people are like, I want to learn a foundation, and they stick to it, and they like grind on that for years. And they have a, you know, mentor like versus someone like yourself who seems to just kind of like. Are you pursuing most things? Wait, Are you still involved in Crump, for example? Do you still work on your popping?
Yes.
How do you cut it up? Are you structured, or are you just kind of whatever feels good?
Sometimes it's whatever feels good, but if I'm preparing for something or if I have a specific goal in mind, then I'm like, okay, today is Crump, and what we're gonna do is chest pops on arm swings, or I'm gonna work on stomps, drags. You know, like there'll be specific things that I'm like, I really want to level this up, so I'm gonna level that up. You know, like, and especially if I want to dial in on my body control, then I'm going to dial into, you know, dime stops and different aspects of popping to help me really build the language that I want to come out of my movement. So then I find basically like my own curriculum to follow so that way I can reach that goal. But I have had mentors, and I still do to this day. Like, I know, like, when I've gotten around Frantic, he's given me so many gems. And he's always been like that. He's always been very, very giving when it comes to that. And so, like, you know, I appreciate him for getting me right, too. Yeah. Even, like, being in Wave Gang, like, you know, I take, as a student, always, when I experience, you know, because there's always something to learn in this life. And so that's just the way that I've naturally learned how to grow, because I guess because of like my dynamic growing up, it was hard to have somebody directly be like, hey, this is how you need to practice and where you need to practice. I just knew, like, if I love something, I need to give more of my time to it.
I know you do a lot of video work as a videographer, right? Yeah. I know you work with dancers. Do you find that helps you in your dance, like stepping back and just observing?
Yes, absolutely. And I think observing is also, I feel, a really important component to not only being a student, but just life. So you can also see where the perspectives come from. This also kind of ties into like why it's important to know the lineage of things, because then you see where you've been, and then you see where you can go, and also where you want to go. And when I'm not like deep in the sauce, I do enjoy taking a step back and observing and just being a pedestrian to all that is happening, and taking in just life. Like, so it doesn't have to be movement.
You have a really nice, like, a lot of people move to LA, and you know, their vision is to make it. There's different versions of that.
Yeah.
You know, lots of them, but you seem to be just pursuing the thing itself. I don't know. Is that accurate? Like, does the video work to some extent free you up from, because you can get paid to do video work. Does that relieve some of the pressure to dance for jobs?
Yeah, actually.
What's the relationship there?
Yeah, I like the way that kind of panned out, because granted, the way that my lifestyle is now, I didn't initially plan for it to be this way. It's just how it unfolded, and I ended up enjoying it, because sometimes you know you can get burnt out from doing so much for so long, or just for an extended period of time. And I think being able to jump between the two has helped create a nice internal balance for me to also still appreciate where I'm at, what I'm doing, and how I'm doing it, versus being so overly obsessed that I start to like really harshly self-criticize and then get stuck. You know what I mean?
Right.
Which I have. You know what I mean? That's happened. You know, we all kind of go through those moments, but in this case, it kind of takes away some of those added pressures because I'm also living in another passion, which is film, and I'm able to breathe between the two.
Right.
You know.
Do you work on film projects for yourself?
Yeah, I'm really bad at putting them out.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Is there one that you want to talk about that's coming together in some way?
Well, right now I'm doing this 30-day series, and it's really, really, really slow. It's
30-day series?
It's just like a really short, how do you say, short form project, which is strictly for social, and I'm also rebuilding like a YouTube, so I'm trying to utilize a lot of the stuff that I create to put on this YouTube because now I have a dream to have my own platform, not just solely for me and all my things, but for all the people that love dance and love film the same way that I do, that want to create these. Because going back to me growing up as a Mexican boy trying to find his place in an art world, I didn't see a lot of that. And when I did, I had to really like dig for it.
I don't, let me cut you off, but this really how is that? Have you found that being in Los Angeles has given you more access to, because the Latino art scene here, for everything is vast and not hidden away. Has that given you more access to this world that you talk about looking for?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, and even like, because I also have family here, and even when I go see them, I'm just like, that's right. It's always been here. And even when I get around, you know, like folks like the Great One-Eighters, they're all Latino. I just, you know, I don't even think I've shared this with all of them, but I get energized because it's like, you know, we're out here doing this. We're out here creating things or even creating opportunities for the community or for each other. And granted, I've been in and out of the community because of where my life has been lately with work. It's always really dope and inspiring to see Latinos uplifting everyone, and not even just Latinos, but everyone. What
that group does is so impressive to me.
Yeah.
Right? Like
yeah.
I you know, for those who don't know, the Great One-Eighters, they're all like high school friends, right? Maybe even grade school, some of them.
Yeah.
And they decided to put together this nonprofit based on community and creativity, and they're staging, you know, not just dance stuff, but skate stuff. They do wrestling, right?
Yeah.
They've got their own space, and it's always super welcoming. And I just wanted to highlight that because I think it is beautiful.
Even like also to mention like the Versatile.
Oh yeah,
primarily
The thing is, I
Latinos
do end
too.
up talking about them a lot.
You know, yeah. But even them too, because then when I found out about like
Versatile's amazing.
Yeah, Jackie and Breeze Lee doing what they're doing, I was like,
Right.
yeah. And I'm all about community. I love community in general.
Where do you? I do too, and I think I've told you this. I don't want to go on because I've talked about this in almost every episode, but I mean that's why I photographed this. I think we've talked about this. Where do you see this community heading? Like, I feel like it's more vital now than ever, given just the isolation that we're seeing from the digital phone era, right? Which I think, you know, you can talk about the benefits, and there's a lot of views on what the phone has done to life, but as far as I'm concerned, the evidence is in, right? There's a aspect of this has been damaging to all of us. And so the dance community brings people together in person, right?
Yeah.
So I feel like it's more vital than ever. And now we have a political climate in which we've got a whole segment of society, a bunch of them are in the White House right now, that think it's perfectly okay to just come out and attack immigrants and attack people of color. And I want to say, like, I'm aware that these people have always been there. I'm aware that this is always a part of American life, but I do think you can't get too cynical about it. Like, you have to realize there's one thing for this kind of bigotry and hate to exist.
Yeah.
It's another thing for it to be okay, right? For it to be given credence, for it to have like, oh, it's okay to be like this, right? Like, I know some people think, well, I'd rather be given the wolf than the fox, right? Because at least the wolf, I know what I'm dealing with. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So now that bigots are coming out and being more bold, you can see them for who they are. But on the other hand, I don't know. They're also raising kids, right? So like, from my point of view, this new acceptance of this kind of shit is really, really horrifying to me, no matter how you look at it, whether you talk about how it's always been there or not. You know, it's not about pretending that it's going to go away. It's more about, So where do you think the community goes from here in kind of building up a defense? I don't mean like this kind of defense.
Yeah.
I just mean like a community defense against this political movement that's going on right now that's telling everybody, it's okay to just like go into people's homes and arrest them, this, because I see this as a potential bulwark against this kind of shit, right?
Yeah,
but only if people show up.
Right. And I think that's the key word too, is like showing up. Like even for me, like I know there's moments where I know I need to show up, even if I feel equipped or not. And when I do, in the moment, I know God is going to be with me to help me do whatever I need to do to help be of service. And what I think the community needs is more community, but also more people in the community to create more art, create more opportunities for each other, so that way we can continue to build that community and we can start relieving ourselves of feeling obligated to rely on that side, that government, on those things that aren't looking out for our best interest, rather than be in a place where we can rely on the community that we've already, given our time to. And that way it can continue to cycle and build and grow.
Right.
And we can just be self-sustainable, essentially, and I think even for me, that's the goal, is like to be self-sustainable. So there's no outside source that I have to rely on that can have a say-so on how my life goes. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like from the food, from my energy source, from my own gasoline. Granted, we want to try to get away from that as much as possible, but that's a whole different conversation in itself. But I believe that community, fueling community through building more opportunities through artistic creations, is what is needed.
Right.
Just to also shed light on what is true and what is not, what is helpful and what is harmful, and to help also build that discernment muscle, so that way we can start to show up more and much easier. I think that's what we need. We just need more education for these sort of things, and we need the information to include the fact that it is okay to pursue an artistic lifestyle, because it can benefit you. It can benefit you as a human, but also,
But like, I couldn't agree more. I mean, even if it's not a lifestyle, I think the arts teach you how to practice something and how to get better at something.
Yeah.
Right. I think we're seeing a lot of fragility right now because the arts are missing, because arts helped you develop from the inside out. Right?
Yeah.
And we're so focused as a U.S. culture on the outside in that I think it's really made us really, really fragile. Do you know what I mean?
I mean, this is how I see it, and this is how I've always found it. For me, is the further away I get from love, the things that I love, the things that bring me joy, the further away I am from God, which is the further I am from faith. And when I lose my faith, I lose my ground, I lose my sense of self and how I can move forward, and then I become confused and easily influenced.
Right, but you're not gonna. Well, I guess I can't predict the future, but you strike me as someone who is probably not going to lose that because you spent so much time developing it, right?
Yeah.
but I think we're seeing all this anger and all this stuff comes out. I think this lack of what you're taught, this lack of love, this lack of faith. To me,
Yeah.
I'm not a religious person. I did grow up in the church, and I appreciate and embrace like a lot of those values, like Christian values.
Yeah.
And to me, the act of faith, the acts of faith that are really important to me and that I try to exercise are just like talking to strangers, right? I know Freedom and I talked about this a little bit, because to me that's a right now when people are so wary of each other. Like you get on the bus and you're like, okay, right, or you get on the train, or you're just like you just want to like there's this feeling you want to protect yourself, right? And so to me, one of the biggest acts of faith you can exercise right now is just talking to somebody you don't know, and not being scared of them. And I feel I guess that's what I'm kind of getting at with this community. Do you see this community continuing to move in that direction and not withdrawing, right?
Yeah.
How does it remain strong in the face of this bullshit?
Yeah, I think it's definitely like, communication. And even where I was going with that is like always staying connected to the art, because the art is where you find that faith. Like it's not even something that you have to try. It just comes. When you're creating, when you're in the process of creating, you're already in the process of connecting to something higher than yourself to know that it will be okay, but now you have to become aware of how can I follow these steps to make that change, whether it be in creating my art or putting a voice behind my art to help, further that change and plant that seed and help it grow, And then because we have so many bodies that exists within the community, everybody has that capability. I think it's just helping them understand that they have that capacity, because we all do. We all are connected to the same thing. It's just we don't know how to touch it yet. Some of us don't, and some of us do, and some of us maybe are unconsciously aware. But I believe that if we're able to, share the wealth in that way, then we'll be rich. Yeah. Without the necessary funding from the government. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Or right. I agree with you. I definitely grew up with that ethic. My dad was really big on, like at the dinner table would just say, we're rich because we've got, I grew up extremely middle class, right? Like, was not poor, but we were definitely not, considered rich, like even in our own neighborhood. And he would always say this type of shit. He just like, we're rich, you got like dinner, you've got family, you've got a roof over your head, and you got like a certain amount of security and just joy. And I was definitely raised with that idea. And I carry that with me because I think it's really important. Yeah. But I it's I'm not sure. I must have met you at Creatington at some point, right?
Yeah, no, definitely.
But you've always kind of radiated that kind of warmth and kind of like faith in just being open to other people. So I've always appreciated that about your kind of character. I mean, not that I know you that well, but I know you well enough to, I think, say that.
Yeah, right. I owe a lot of that to the women in my life. I was raised by my tia, my mom, my grandmother, and basically all my tias. Like they all instilled a lot of really great values. But one of the biggest things, especially from my grandmother, was like, of course, which comes from the Bible, like love thy neighbor. And you don't necessarily have to judge the book by its cover, but create a space to help be of service if needed. But if not, then just be there. Be there and be open to whatever that experience is, because you never know what it's going to give you. Maybe they're there for you that day versus you being there for them. And that's been very, very prevalent in my journey. And I've seen it time and time again. And that's why I'm like, I can't shy away from those moments, because I know it'll do something for me.
So this is interesting. Did you feel like when you came to LA, because this place is so notorious for a lot of people come here and they lose themselves, or they just feel, because this can be, LA can be, especially if you come out here to get into some aspect of the entertainment industry, can be very cold, and people are not necessarily going to be very welcoming. Did you find it a struggle to maintain that kind of humanitarian faithful, whatever, where do you want to focus when you came here? Or did you just, do you feel like, what do you think about LA and the character of LA since you've moved here and you've lived here long enough now to have some opinion on it?
Yeah, I think industry wise, I know where that, I guess, whole aesthetic goes and where it stands. And I know, like, business is business. So when it's business. There's no emotions tied to it. And if it gets to a point where somebody gets emotional, then we have a conversation. And then if it can't get resolved, then we just have to either go our separate ways or let it be what it is. You know what I mean? But I think naturally, because I grew up the way and where I grew up, I actually gravitated more towards the scene that was not the industry.
Right. So I guess what I'm asking you is, in general, did you find people to be, did you have trouble meeting people here? Did you find, people often talk about it's hard to make friends here, or they talk about, it's hard dating here, right? And I have my own views on that, but I'm curious, did you, or do you think it's just kind of like...
I mean, I think because also naturally I, in a way, let things come to me. Yeah. I'm not one to really be outgoing. I'm naturally introverted, but granted, I have a charm to me, so I know that I can create conversations, yada yada yada.
Right.
However, if I'm in a new space, I'm not gonna be like, I'm gonna more so be more observant and kind of like assess that way, like, where can I actually place my energy. And will it be welcomed, or will it just kind of be disregarded because of status?
Right.
And that's something that I was already mindful of coming here. And even when me and Freedom would just move around this place, we were just kind of like assessing and gaining even more awareness and realizing, like, this is the nature of LA in regards to Hollywood and to the industry. But we went to the other side, which is the community, and that's where we were like, okay, these are, the people, and the people are here for people, not for, the money and the fame.
I mean, it's a huge place, right? So I just want to hear what you say, because I think most of that kind of stuff is, it's when people say things like, oh, dating in LA is X, Y, and Z terrible, I usually kind of think, it's really about you. Right? Not that this person's a bad person, but that they're scared and that they're putting up all these barriers, and so they're not being received well, right? And again, going back to this dance community, like, there's plenty of evidence that you can go in a room full of strangers and, maybe not everybody's going to like invite you to their house the next day, but like, you can be treated with respect and meet somebody you didn't know and like get some human warmth, even in this vast metropolis, right? Yeah.
And it's I think it's always more about easing yourself into those opportunities of connection rather than forcing it. And I feel like that's also partially why I feel some people have a hard time, because they want something so bad, so they unconsciously are forcing themselves into these these situations. I also speak from experience, because I've had some moments with that as well. You know what I mean?
Of course, like, I've done that. Do you remember the finger handcuffs?
Oh yeah.
The harder you pull,
yes,
right. The hard you can't. You have to relax.
You have to come together to.
No. Meaning it's like, put them on, but to get out, you can't get out unless you relax.
Yeah.
Right. The harder you pull, the more they.
Yeah, because like wasn't the trick where you would have to like hold it together but press it to where it creates that space. That way one could come out and then the other.
Right.
Yeah.
The harder you try, the worse it gets for you.
Yeah. Man, but
this has been really great getting to know you better. Do you have anything you'd like to ask me before we? Because again, like I said, I always end up driving. Yeah, it's not the intent, so I just want to open up that space.
I would love to know how this space came about.
Oh, so
for you?
My friend Dylan, shout out to Dylan. He's moving back here. He's been living in Brussels for the past few years.
Oh, wow.
And he's coming back here. He and his wife are coming back in June. They're looking for an apartment if you got any leads.
Sick.
He and I met actually through Cal Arts.
Cool.
I answered an ad for a drummer. They were looking for a drummer for a Super Mario rock opera.
Oh, dang, that sounds dope.
It was dope. It turned out to be, so I went and I ended up joining this, was essentially a band or a stage production. It was a Cal Arts student's senior thesis. And so we did quite a few shows around LA, and it was pretty awesome. There was a band, I played percussion, and one of the guitarists in this production was Dylan McKenzie. And a few years, this thing was very short-lived, right? The guy graduated and we did perform, but it was super, super fun. And do-da-do-da-do-da.
Oh.
It was great, right? You had costumes and like Princess Peach gets saved and all this, right? It was really, really fun. But Dylan and I stayed friends, and then he put out the word that he was looking for a studio mate. And at that time, I wasn't really doing photography. I was just kind of getting into photography, but I needed a place to practice, and I was in various bands. So I was like, yes. So I came here, and I had that side of the room when I first came in here. So we split the room. His band, his trio had this half of the room, and I had that half of the room. And so I had my drums basically where they are now, and then I had, this was kind of a photo area, and I started playing around with that. And then just over time, it ended up becoming just Dylan and I. And then right around just before the lockdown, he decided to bail on this because he was living in the valley, and the commute and all that was just too much for him. Man. So I ended up with the space to myself.
Nice.
And my friend Evan, that's his piano right there. So he's got a recording studio on the other side of this building.
Oh, sick.
So he's actually my studio mate. But he's not really using the space that much. Has meetings in here every once in a while, keeps a piano here. And we collaborate on stuff from time to time. But that's been the evolution of it. And I just, I always wanted a space downtown.
Yeah.
And so when the opportunity came, I was like, awesome. And then it just, over time became more and more my space.
Yeah.
So it just keeps evolving. But that's it. I love it down here, man. It's really, really great. I feel extremely fortunate.
I feel like you also have a really dope, hospitable community under you.
Yeah. Oh, the flower people are great. And again, like, I make an effort. Like, I'm friendly. I don't really speak Spanish, but I can speak a few words and be friendly and buy flowers for my podcast and like let them know that if we got a problem, here's my phone number, and stuff like that. Again, it's just like, be a fucking human.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so every time you walk out in the street here, there's something going on, right?
Yeah.
And you got the garment district.
Yeah, I might take a walk over there in a bit.
And it's just awesome.
Yeah, that's cool.
So
I have another question.
Yes, sir.
So I don't know if anybody's asked you this question on the podcast at least, but when it comes to all these fantastic portraits that you have of dancers, what was the first one that this?
Oh, that's a killer question.
I
don't have a print of it here. I will include it in the podcast, but the first, after I encountered the dance class in the parking lot, and then I came back the next week with a camera, Slim was still teaching in the parking lot itself, and I've got this picture of him at the front of the group leading the class, and his head's kind of back and his arms are out. And it's a very sacrificial kind of pose.
Wow.
And that was the first one where I knew it was a good photo and where it captured the spirit of what I was seeing, which was the leadership in the community and the kind of like vulnerability of all of that. So that was the first one.
Wow.
And then this group, that grew into this group that includes this.
Yeah, and that's Breland, right?
That's Breland, yes.
From Floridians?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. And there's Jay.
Dang,
Knox
Knox, yeah. Yo, shout out to both of them.
I just ran into Knox a couple weeks ago. Madeline had a little exhibit.
Oh, sick.
And it was so good to see him. I hadn't seen him for years.
Yeah.
Because I haven't been able to make it to his DJ events.
Yeah, me same. I'm trying to go one day.
So, that does that answer your question?
Yeah, no, yeah. And that was like what, 2014, 15? Oh, 2017. Wow. So since 2017, you've been capturing moments of dancers and their expressions.
Yeah. Yeah. And then the people behind them became increasingly important. Whereas like you see, there's always somebody in the background of all of these.
Yeah.
But they're
Green, Phil. I know Phil.
Yeah. But then that became like, okay, now most of my photos now are very intentionally, you see the people in the background. That's like become a more of a focus to get that kind of feeling of like the support and the community and just the raw vulnerability of all of it.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Dang, that's cool.
So
Did you make a photo book out of these at all?
I just had the exhibit.
Yeah.
The gallery exhibit at Bergamot Station. And then after that, I realized that gallery exhibits were not going to work for this because they're hard to sell, right? At least at this point, or at that point, maybe now, but like the value of these in terms of something that I could sell, and because it's very expensive to produce an exhibit like this, right? I was like, okay, I can't keep doing that.
Yeah.
And I don't have any vision. I'm not a salesman, and I'm not doing this to like sell photos of this community, right? That's never been, I've always been conscious of like not just coming here and trying to take, right?
Yeah.
So a book will definitely happen. But I keep doing this. And so I've never at any point has anybody approached me, or if I sat down and thought about, if I did a book, what would the focus be? What would the theme? Rather than just like random dance photos, you know? I think it would have to be Los Angeles because 90% of the shots are from Los Angeles. But I don't have a focus for it yet, but it seems inevitable to me, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Especially because you have so much.
I have, and I keep all this, my archive is tight, right? I go into the metadata and put names, this and throughout, like when Greens was closing Creatington, he's like, I want to include a section in the book. And all I had to do was go into my archive, type Creatington, find the photos I'd flagged and throw them up. But like, it was very easy.
Nice.
So my archive is very well documented, and, I can type in Jon Gifted and find most of the photos
That's
I have of you.
Wow.
Because I am very intentional about this, right? I feel like I'm, at some point I realized, okay, I'm documenting the history of this culture here. And I'm very, serious about that, as much I have a blast doing it, but like, it's a very serious pursuit, like even if none of these people ever get famous, it's not about that. It's just about this very real community, that represents something, so important and so valuable. And, this is one of the cradles of this culture.
Yeah.
So
one of the bigger ones too.
Yes, for sure.
Dang.
So I feel very fortunate to have like landed in the middle of this. And so I really want to do, right by it and make sure I document it. And I do need to give somebody, I do need to get some instructions together for like, if I were to disappear tomorrow, somebody could take this archive and know how to go through it and make sure it's preserved.
Yeah. Dang.
Because every time I get one of these requests, or I'll be cataloging and I'll start going back and looking at, stuff from 5 years ago, 10 years ago. Yeah, I've got 10 years of this now.
Jeez.
And I'll get emotional, man. I'll start crying sometimes because it's just like, wow.
Yeah.
There's so much that went on in these rooms, and it's just really beautiful to me. And I know it's also beautiful to most of the people who were there too.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. And to also relive a moment just through a photo. Like I don't know if it is for you
It
this
is,
way.
everybody's doing video, and as I've been working on my video skills, but that's never going to change the fact that I find the photo to be the thing that I like, right? Like everybody's doing video and the world's moving too damn fast. And I find a lot of value in just being able to stop and look at something that's frozen for a minute.
Yeah.
That's not,
Yeah, because there's beauty in stillness.
There's beauty in stillness, yeah.
Yeah.
And you can take a look at it and absorb it.
Yes, and that's why stillness is always important.
That's right. Well, hey, I got one more question for you.
Yeah.
Would you be willing to engage in a little act of faith? And I've got an electronic drum kit, and I would love, if you're up for it, please don't feel obligated, but if you're up for it, I'd love to do a little exchange, a little improvisation, drum dance.
Yeah.
All right.
Heck yeah, bro. Let's do it.
Let's do it. All right, hell, hey, thank you once again. I really appreciate you.
It's a pleasure, bro.
And it's been really nice. And give me about 5 minutes to rearrange things,
Dope.
and we'll get to it.
Sick.
All right.
Let's go.
letting me go. I was like,
whenever you're done,